everyone. Welcome to Head Talks. Today is the last in our little mini-series on espionage. And so we started with a woman. You remember who we started with? Mata Hari, exactly right. And so I wanted to end with a woman, equal time, correct? So yes, and I found the woman that we're going to be talking about today, and I just thought she is just too much of a character for us to omit her in this particular series. Have you ever heard of Belle Boyd? No. I hadn't either, and yet she has a crazy story. It's crazy. So I'm very happy to introduce you to Belle Boyd. She is a character and a half. All right, so we're going to get started on our last in our espionage. All right, she is named at birth Maria Isabel Boyd. So Belle is her nickname. She was born in Martinsburg, West Virginia in 1844. All right, so what kind of a spy do you think she was? Yes, exactly. She was a Civil War spy. And being in West Virginia, let's just take a look at where she is. All right, so this is the United States, and it's broken up in time frames where these are Union. So these are Union states. Here's the line right here. All right, and where is she? Right on the border, right? Exactly on the border. She couldn't be more in the thick of things, could she?
No.
Yes, because this is where it's all happening right in this area. So she's right smack in the middle of everything. And because we're going to be focused on West Virginia, I thought I would just start us off by setting the mood, okay? Are you ready? We're going to set the mood with West Virginia. lovely. Isn't it? What? It made you sleepy. Well, you know, it was funny because that's the kind of thing I show before I start meditation. I sneak in early and I put on something like that to get everybody, you know, just mellowed out. But yeah, so I just wanted to set the mood a little bit. This is the area, West Virginia, that a lot of this is going to be taking place. This is the actual home that Belle was born into. They've since made it a museum. They're very, very proud of her in West Virginia. All right. Now, her father, they're a wealthy family. Her father did own a shop, but mainly where he made his money, where his wealth was that he was also the owner of a tobacco farm. All right, so that's where the family wealth comes in. She describes her childhood. All right, she is the oldest of 8. All right, there's 8 kids, all surviving, and she's the oldest. And when she talks about her childhood, she describes it using the word idyllic. The painting has nothing to do with her. I think it's just my idea of what's idyllic. That to me looks idyllic, so put it up there. But it has nothing to do with anything else. So she talks about this very, very happy childhood. However, there's other accounts and things that did happen that let us know that she might have thought that things were going really, really well, but those around her could easily become annoyed with her. Apparently, she was a very mischievous child. I search and search for stuff for you guys. You have no idea how much time I put into all this. I know that was so cute. So she was a mischievous young lady. Now the way she describes it was that she had free reign. So she calls it free reign, but other people call it. She got herself into trouble. She got into big time trouble. When she was 12 years old, she was kicked out of school. She was expelled from school, and you have to know that I searched and searched to find out what she did, and I couldn't find it, because I really would have loved to have known myself and to have shared that with you. So I don't know what she did, but I do know she's 12 years old, and she got expelled from school. And so what are her parents to do? They decide they're going to send her off early to finishing school. So she goes to Mount Washington Finishing School, and of course while she's there, she's a Southern belle, and she's learning needlepoint and crochet and how to dance and how to, what, Dennis?
Where's Mount Washington?
Washington, D.C.
Oh.
Yeah, in Washington, D.C.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I should have said that, because that can be confusing. So she's learning how to be what? A lady, exactly. The finishing school is for her to become a lady. Yes. And now she's only 16 years old. She's 16 years old, so she's a little bit younger than most, but because she had to go so soon. Usually you go at like 15, right? She had to go at 12. When she's 16 years old, she's finished with school, and so now she's going to have to be a very young debutante, right? All right, so she's gonna go to all the balls and everything, and so she's coming out, right? It's her coming out, and she's attending all of these balls. And do you know where these balls are that she's attending? In Washington, D.C. So she's in Washington, she's in Washington, D.C. Now, it's very interesting that she's doing exactly this. She's from a wealthy family. She is very much a Scarlett O'Hara And yet, within the year, she will be in prison in Washington, D.C. within a year. All right? So she's not just a spy, she's a teenager. She's a teenage spy. All right? She's just, I don't know. I think she had a screw loose, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Yeah. Oh, wait, it gets worse. It just gets worse. All right? It just gets worse and worse. But yeah, Pat said she's not very good if she got imprisoned within the year. But yeah, she does. Within a year's time, she is going to be in prison in Washington, D.C., where she had just been, the belle of the ball, attending all of these things. Now, what happened? What happened was Abraham Lincoln becomes president, right? And there are some states that are not happy with that, right? You all know history. I don't have to go into that. So originally there were 7 states that seceded when Abraham Lincoln becomes president, and they're noted in blue down here. And then, of course, after the attack on Fort Sumter, then there were more states that seceded, and immediately after that, what did we have? Yes, we had the Civil War. And the southern states, they elected their own president, correct? Yes, they elect their own president, and they also elect Robert E. Lee to head their army. Okay, so now we're full-blown into the Civil War. Belle's father, he's older, but he still joins the Confederate Army, and he is assigned under, any guesses?
Jackson.
Yeah, he's assigned, he is, he's a Confederate soldier under Stonewall Jackson. Of course, his first name isn't Stonewall. It's Thomas. It's Thomas, but Stonewall was a nickname that he got for his demeanor in battle. Yeah, he was just, immovable. He was unflappable, and so that was a nickname that he got after that. All right, so her father is fighting for the Confederate Army. Where do you think her allegiances are? With the South, definitely with the South. That's what her family believes in. That's what her community believes in, and she's got a very deep loyalty. Now, again, I'm showing this map, right? And you're seeing how close it is to. It's a border state, and did you know it goes back and forth and back and forth and back and forth? All right, so her town, her community, changed hands over 30 times, and one time it happened 3 times in one day. 3 times in one day it flopped. Now, I know we're talking about Belle Boyd, but as I was researching this, a neighboring city, Winchester, West Virginia, that changed hands over 70 times during the 4 years. It changed over 70 times. All right, so the people living in these border states are dealing with an awful lot, right? 1 minute it's their people, the next minute they're invaded, they're occupied, and it's happening frequently. Can you imagine daily life like that? It was really stressful. It was very, very stressful being right along this line right here. Incredibly stressful. Now, that was March, April. Now we're right into July of 1861. And Martinsburg is occupied by Union soldiers. It's July. It's not just July. It's the 4th of July. So what do you do on the 4th of July? celebrate, have a party, have a drink. Yes, have a drink or 2 or 3 or 5 or 10. And so apparently the Union soldiers were celebrating the 4th in that way, in that fashion. And as they were doing that, located in Martinsburg, they found out that the Boyd home had a Confederate flag. Not only that, but that they were sewing Confederate flags out of the Boyd home. So these guys, you know, with a little bluster after a few drinks, decide that they're going to march themselves down there and confront the family who's making Confederate flags, and that they're going to hang a Union flag in the front of their house. Well, they burst in, according to Belle, this is her version of this story. They burst in, and they're making demands. They're being very rude. Now, her father, of course, is fighting with Stonewall Jackson, right? He's not home. So it's Belle and her mother and her younger siblings. And as the Union soldiers are just, as she describes it, getting too rough and disorderly, well, she just takes her pistol out and she shoots one. She shoots one, and he died. He died a few hours later. Yeah, he died. So she shot a Union soldier while they're occupying her community, and he died. So, of course, she gets taken in, and there's a trial, and something had to have happened. Her story had to have been at least largely true, because she was found to be innocent, and the reason was self-defense, that she had reasonable cause to think that she and her mother and her siblings were in danger, and so that she used a reasonable force. She used reasonable force. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so she gets off, but because the soldiers aren't really happy with that outcome, right? There's always one side that's going to be unhappy. All right, so the Union soldiers are very upset about the result of the trial, and they want to burn that house down, the Boyd house down. So now Union soldiers have to post guards at the house so that other soldiers don't come and do something like burn it down. Now, Belle, do you think she was intimidated by this situation? Not at all. She's not the slightest bit intimidated. In fact, she thinks, oh, what a great opportunity. And she starts flirting with the Union soldiers. She's flirting with the Union soldiers there to protect her home and family. And as she does, the soldiers are, you know, letting something leak out, and she's getting some information. She's getting a lot of information. Pillow talk. There you go, Pat. Yes, yes. And so she's thinking to herself, I'll bet Stonewall Jackson would love to hear about these things. And so what she does is she's writing these messages, and she's giving them to her, she has a slave that she's very, very close to, Eliza. Eliza Hopewell is her name. And they're very close. They stay close for the rest of their lives. And she's giving them to Eliza, and Eliza is delivering them because she could get further. You needed papers to pass through all these lines, and Eliza could get through. Well, they weren't very good at it because she was caught like almost immediately and thrown into jail. All right. No, Belle.
Oh, Belle?
Belle was the one that was getting the information and writing the messages, and yeah. So Belle was very quickly caught. Yeah, not very good at it at all. And so now her Confederate soldiers, when she gets out, they're not saying to her, listen, you're not very good at this. Please, don't help us. Please don't do us any favors. You're not too good at that. That's not how they wanted to handle that. They had a better idea. Let's teach her. Let's teach her how to do things the right way. All right, so now she's got one of these counterintelligence guys from the Confederate Army who's spending time with her, teaching her how to hide messages in the, if she wears her hair in a bun, or to put it in a loaf of bread, or to where to hide these things. They carved out a watch. They took all the guts out of a watch and put messages inside. She had a watch. So she becomes a courier. She becomes a courier because of where she's located in Martinsburg. She's located right there. She has access. So she's trying to get as much information as she can and then relay that to Stonewall Jackson's troops. All right, so even though she's had a little bit of training here, she's still really not that good at it because she has to go to jail again. I think she was arrested 6 or 7 times. One place I read 6. I mean, 2 places I read 6, and a third place I read 7. But she keeps getting arrested. Okay, so she's just really not that good at it, no matter what. Now, you can imagine her parents are frantic because as she's getting arrested more and more frequently, they're telling her, you can be sentenced to death. You can die for doing this. It's not a game. All right, but every time she goes to jail, she just kind of gets like a little slap on the wrist because she's a teenager. She's a teenage girl. And she looks the whole part, she dresses the whole Southern Belle part, and she just doesn't come off as being in any way threatening. And so it keeps happening over and over again. She gets a little slap on the wrist and they send her home. But her parents are now she's just getting caught too often and she's in danger, and they're telling her that she could be executed for what she's doing. So what they want to do is get her out of there. Any parent would want to do that, right? All right, so her mother has a sister in Front Royal is the name of this Virginia, thank you, of this location in Virginia. And her sister Rebecca and her husband own a hotel, and so they sent her down to Aunt Rebecca to get her out of trouble, because of course that will work. So she gets down there. She gets down there and she stays with her aunt and uncle, and she's staying in the hotel with them when guess who eventually inevitably shows up but Union soldiers, right? All right, so Union soldiers come and they're going to commandeer that hotel because that would be a perfect place to stay while they're occupying that area. So they have the family leave. The family has this little cottage in the back of this is actually it. That's the cottage. And so I know it's not so bad. It wasn't too bad. So they have to stay in the cottage while the Union soldiers are staying in the hotel. And of course they're having their meetings there, right? They're meeting, they're strategizing, they're planning their next moves there. Well, Belle is not only flirting with those soldiers too, but she remembers, because remember, she had been living there, she remembers that there's a little hole in the floor of the closet. And if she wanted to get some information, she just has to sneak up into the closet, and she would stay there all day. And she would spy on the Union soldiers and try to pick up whatever information she could. So she does. She gets some good information. And, of course, she's going to do what? Yeah, she's going to send that right along. So absolutely nothing is going to stop her. Now, one day in Front Royal, she's noticing that the soldiers are buzzing around. It's all busy. There's activity happening that doesn't normally happen. So she just goes out and very innocently asks, "What's going on? What's happening?" And they tell her. They tell her. Again, she just appears like she's just a completely unthreatening kind of a person. Perfect. Perfect. I know, right? So they tell her. So there's a small group of Union troops there, and they're going to evacuate because they hear that Stonewall Jackson is just about a mile away. So they're going to evacuate, and they're going to burn the bridges as they go so that he can't follow them, to slow him down. All right, so that's the plan, and they tell her. They tell her that that's what's going on. And so she goes and she's waiting until she can see the troops coming. And as soon as she sees the troops coming, she sets to dash out. Now they've engaged. Confederate soldiers and Union soldiers have engaged. There is an exchange of fire. There's shots, there's exchange. All right? And what does she do? She runs through it. She runs through the enemy fire. She's got bullet holes in her skirts, but she runs through, and she gets to not Stonewall Jackson himself, but somebody, and says, "There's not a lot of them. You have to come down. You can get them if you just go right down. There aren't that many. You can take care of this, and they plan on burning the bridges. So if you do this, if you do what I say, you'll be able to get them and succeed." And of course, what did Stonewall Jackson do? Yes, he won again. And so, yeah, so he won, and the bridges weren't burnt, and he just followed her directions exactly. And she survives this without injury. She runs right through the firing, and she survives it. And she is at home in the cottage with her aunt and uncle when a sentry arrives, and the sentry has a paper for her, and it is a personal note written by hand by Stonewall Jackson. I couldn't get the note. I searched it. Do you know there's not like a lot of stuff? Like I went to her museum. I went to the West Virginia Historical Society. I went all kinds of places trying to find these things. So I did find Jackson's signature. That is his signature. So that was the best I could deliver to you. His signature. But TJ, he writes her a personal note thanking her and telling her that she is a friend of the Southern cause. Okay, now do you think that now the Union soldiers are waking up a little bit? Now, are they coming to realize that this is a serious problem? This little teenage girl, she's 17. She's 17 years old, all right? And is this young girl becoming a problem, and we've got to do something about it? So that's what they're thinking, and so they set up a sting, okay? There's a sting operation in place to get some evidence on her and just really lock her up and get her out of the way. And so what would you do? What kind of a sting operation would you perform if you're dealing with a 17-year-old teenage girl? Exactly. They find the most handsome Union soldier, all right, and he's going to go undercover. He's going to go undercover as a Confederate soldier, and he is going to sweep her off her feet, and he's going to say how much he believes in the cause, and he believes in all the things she believes in, and she just could not be more. She's just a goner. She's an absolute goner. She falls in love with him. All right, and then I thought you might like to know who set up the sting. Do you know who set up the sting? Who sent the undercover?
Pinkerton.
Excellent. Yeah, good. I was hoping somebody would get it. Yes. Yes, remember? Yeah. So it was Pinkerton that set up this sting. All right, so now at one point, after he feels like he's totally got her all wrapped up, he says to her, I have to go south, and I'm going to be meeting up with Jackson's troops. And she said, okay, can you can you deliver this message to him? She hands him a message with information against the Union, and puts it in his hand. Once he's got it, what does he have? Evidence. He's got the evidence. So the sting operation works. As a matter of fact, this did not take, it took less than like a couple of weeks to have her fall in love with him, and it all happened very, very quickly. All right, Pinkerton. Yeah, all right, so now, of course, she's going to go to jail. All right, she's going to go to jail. So they send her to prison, and she goes to, this is the prison, the old Capitol Prison in Washington, D.C. All right, now remember, just a year ago, she was in Washington, D.C. doing what? Yeah, dancing, filling her dance card. Yes, accepting and rejecting men. That's what she was doing. And now she's in prison. She says that they were very kind to her. I mean, it must have been hard for these guys she was a 17-year-old girl. It must have been kind of hard for them. So anyway, she's in prison. She's there for a month, and she says later on, 1 month, and they're telling her again, you can die, you can die, you can die. But they let her go, all right? And as soon as they let her go, what does she immediately do again? She goes right back to it, so they capture her again, and she's in prison. She's in prison another time, and they release her this time because she comes down with typhoid fever. But at this point, she too is feeling like, I need to get away. Now she's starting to understand, I really could be. This has happened so many times. I've been caught so many times. I really, really am in trouble. And, my being a teenage girl isn't going to get me out of this anymore. So she decides that she's got to leave, and she's going to go to England. She wants to go to England. Well, if she's going to go to England, she may as well do some work. So Jefferson Davis asks her if she will carry for him a letter to England asking for help. So the Confederate Army is looking for help from England, and that she's going to deliver this letter. And of course she says yes. Yes, she will do that. I know, right? I'm telling you, it's such a crazy story. But it was a crazy time. It was a really crazy time. All right, so, and it is, and just like a broken record, Pat, it's like a broken record. So she's on the ship with a Confederate captain, with the ship, taking the ship to England, when, I don't know if that's does that look like a pirate ship? I have a thing for pirates. I just do. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I just don't know what it is. But from afar. Like if it ever actually came to, I would totally not. Yeah. All right. So that's yes. So I'm sorry I put that up there. But so they get on the ship and they don't get very far when a Union blockade discovers them and starts to fire on them, and then they take over the ship. Well, Belle has to, she throws over the letter. She can't be caught with it. She throws over the letter, and gets rid of, her and the captain, they get rid of any kind of evidence because they're captured. And it's this guy, Samuel Hardage, and he's the one in charge of all of this. And so they're going to bring them in. They're going to bring them in to be tried. And it takes a couple of days to do that. And over the course of a couple of days, guess what happens to poor Samuel? No? Worse. He falls in love with her.
Oh my God.
Worse.
He falls in love with her. He falls in love with her. All right? So they get back. And the government is just fed up with her. And so they've decided to exile her. All right, she's got to leave the country. You got to go. We're done with you. We've had it. You've been in trouble too many times. So they exile her, but they exile her to Canada. She has to go to Canada. Yeah, so they're going to exile her to Canada. But she can't even do that. She doesn't even do that. She ignores that. And she gets herself on a boat and she just goes to England. She doesn't have the letter anymore. She had to get rid of that. So she's just going to go to England because that was her original plan. She's going to get out of the country. By now she's feeling like, by the skin of my teeth, I've survived all of this. So she really feels like she's got to get out of the country. And then, I don't know where this comes from. Guys, I can't explain this in any way. But she arrives in England, and she becomes an actress. An actress?
But she's got a lot of background.
So she changes her name. She has a stage name. She's Nina Benjamin because, she's hiding out in England. And she's a stage performer. All right. Now, I think if you're a spy and you're undercover and all of that, acting is probably a skill that's innate.
Yes.
But she didn't do any of that, did she? I mean, she wasn't good at it. She just kept being herself and failing at delivering stuff. I mean, she was fearless. She ran through gunfire. She was fearless. But I don't know where these acting skills come into play here. But anyway, so she does. That's what she does. She's in England, and she is now an actress. Well, Samuel, who was starstruck. Yeah, he was just so struck by the young lady. He follows her to England. Now, he's a Union naval officer. She's a Confederate spy. All right? I just don't want the irony of it to be lost here in all the craziness. All right? And so he catches up with her in England, and what do?
They get married.
They get married.
Oh my God.
Exactly. They get married. There they are in England. They get married. They have a daughter. Her name is Grace, and everything's all happy. Very happy. But Samuel has to go back to the United States, and when he does, he is captured and court-martialed. He's captured and court-martialed because not only does he, fall in love with the enemy there, but remember the captain that was taking her to England originally? Samuel looked the other way and allowed him to escape. Yeah, allowed him to escape. And so now he's court-martialed back in the States for aiding and abetting a spy. And while he's in prison, he becomes quite ill. He becomes very, very ill. In fact, Belle writes a letter to Abraham Lincoln saying, could you please, he's so sick, please let him out so that he would have a chance to recover. And he was, but he still passed away. He passed away anyways. And so now she is in England. without, yeah, she's a widow in England, and she's got a little girl, and she's trying to make money. She's trying to survive. So what she has decided that she's going to do, and the war's winding down now, okay? What she has decided to do is she is going to write her memoirs. She's going to write her memoir. She's going to talk about all of the crazy stuff that she has done. It's in 2 volumes. It's called In Camp and Prison, and it's quite large, but it was a sensation both in the United States and in England. So she had published in both places. So she was very successful with that, although she was not without her critics, all right? So there were critics that would know that what she was doing was she was fictionalizing, she was embellishing much of what she was talking about in order to, make her whole story more dramatic and sensational. And so there were published in the paper criticisms calling out her, all the discrepancies and all the things that she was incorrect about. And so there was definitely some strong criticism towards her. Okay?
There's no such thing as bad press.
There's no such thing as bad press, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, it says you must be pretty stupid to invent, I know you really can't read it, such a silly story, or to suppose that there are fools to believe it. All right, so she was strongly criticized. And
So
two,
it's fiction.
it's fiction sprinkled with some truth.
Factual fiction.
It's factual fiction. Yeah. So there's some element. It's based on a true story. All right. So she did some embellishing there in her volumes of work. All right. So now once the war is over, Belle Boyd receives a pardon, and if she can have a pardon, and she has a pardon, what can she now do? She can come home, yes, and that's exactly what she does. When she comes home, the South is seeing her as a hero. They see her as a hero. In fact, she receives, I have a newer one here because it's clearer. See how that's very hard to see? But this is the Southern Cross of Honor, and she received the Southern Cross of Honor. All right, for her heroics during the war. Now, she still has to, that's her in a colorized photo. She's not really an attractive woman.
A lot of charm.
She's got a lot of charm, and she was able to just really totally seduce these people. All right, so she went around the country, and because her book was such a success, she's giving dramatized lectures on her experiences in espionage during the Civil War, and there was a lot of interest in that. So she made a lot of appearances. Here's some playbills showing her. They called her Belle. They called her Belle Rebelle. Yeah, Belle Rebelle, and she was also called the Cleopatra of the Civil War. Yeah, she was the Cleopatra of the Civil War. They called her different things. In the South, they were really, really, really
That was 30 years later.
proud of her. What?
That was 30 years later.
Yeah. Yeah.
Still going
But
strong.
she's in her mid-40s now.
She made a
She-
career out of it.
She made a whole career out of it, yes.
50, because she was born in 44.
Yep. So, yeah, so she was doing the, yeah, this is much later. So she's going from place to place, and she is performing her own life. And while she's doing this, she always wanted to end with this idea of unity. All right, so now, no matter how devoted and dedicated, and no matter what she would do, she wanted to give this message: one God, one flag, one people. And that was how she would end her lectures. All right, so she was known for saying that just while she was doing all of these other things, after Samuel died, she married again to a guy, and they had 4 children together. The oldest one didn't survive, but she had 2 girls and a boy with that husband. And then she divorced him. They were married for about 20 years. She divorced him, and then she married a 3rd time, and she married a guy that was 17 years younger than she was. Yeah, 17 years younger than she was. Yes.
Call that lady?
Cougar. She's a cougar. Yes, she was a cougar. All right. Now, when she was 56 years old, and she's doing these lectures, she's out going from place to place to place. She was actually doing the lecture when she had a heart attack. She had a heart attack on stage, and she died. She died, yeah. She was 56 years old. That is very dramatic. Yes. That's about as dramatic as you can be. Yes. Yes. I know she survived. Yeah, she survived all that other stuff, but she didn't survive. Yeah, she didn't survive the heart attack. So in 1900, she passed away, and this made headlines. Of course, this made headlines. She was a famous spy, and she's really well known. She's well known in West Virginia and down in the South for all that she had done, and for her dedication. And for her dedication for that cause. And this is a memorial to her. All right, that's a close-up of the tomb, and then I've got the wider shot for you, but if you wanted to read that. And it recounts how she ran through the battle to get this information to Stonewall Jackson. And this is the memorial to her. Yep. Yep. So what do you think of Belle Boyd?
What happened to the daughter from England?
I tried to find out anything about the Grace, you mean, the first daughter, Grace?
Yeah.
Well, she had come back with her mother. So they were just, but I couldn't find out anything about their children. Yeah, none of their children. I couldn't even get a photo of the children. That's what I'm thinking. So what Judy was saying, she probably tried to just slip back into, I'm sure she was trying to protect her kids. I don't know. I don't know, because you could look at her as a hero, but being right on the border there, they could be not well thought of. So maybe she was just, but there's no photos that I could find. And again, I went to her museum, but I also went to the West Virginia Historical Society, thinking certainly I would find something there. But I didn't. So I've brought you all the info I could glean. So now, next week, we're not meeting. We're not meeting next week. And that's because on Tuesday, I have a special event on Tuesday, meaning I won't have time to study for Wednesday. So we're going to start a new subject, and I have to share just this one quick thing with you. I was approached by some of my new volunteers, and the new volunteers, young ladies, and they are in school and they do mock trials. Mock trials. Now, I checked, and it's been 2.5 years. Do you remember 2.5 years ago, I did great trials in history? Do you remember that one? You weren't here. Yeah, it was a while ago. Anyways, it was pretty good. It was pretty good. Would you like to do great trials in history, and then the young ladies will perform a mock trial here for you.
Sure.
Does that sound interesting? Something different? Yeah, a mock trial. They'll do a mock trial right here. Right here. They're very excited to do it. But yeah, I think it would be fun. And then I think it would be fun to have the kids do a mock trial for us. All right, so how's that sound? Good? All right, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for coming. I'll see you in 2 weeks.